Welcome back to another video. In today's video we're looking at the Dacia Duster facelift version of 2022. This car is a real cheap one because it starts at 16,900 euros. However, if you want to get the Journey Edition, just like we have right here, it's going to start at 21,850 euros. Well, the car prices have increased recently, so the actual price of what it costs right now is 22,700 euros. But obviously, if you don't want to pay that much for it, you can obviously get a used car. And if you want to buy a used car and be on the safe side, definitely check out this. When you're looking to buy a used car, you might not know exactly the whole history of that car because you're always going to have to rely on the statement of the owner. It has been in a crash, has it been stolen before? That is why today's sponsor is CarVertical. CarVertical is going to tell you the whole history of any car that you input. The only thing that you have to do is input the VIN, which you usually find on the windscreen of the car. Then you get a full review of that car. For instance, this is a 2014 Dacia Duster. We can see there are problems with the odd meter and also a damage. If we scroll down to that, we can see the odd meter that the vehicle may have fake mileage, and it certainly does. We can also see that it has some damage, which all have been noted in CarVertical. And then you can also see the last known selling price and also a price that you should be buying that car for. So if you're looking to buy a new used vehicle, definitely make sure to use CarVertical to be on the safe side, because you don't want to trust the owner all the time because he might hide something from you to get a better price out of you. So with the link down in the description or also in the comments, you can use code nonstopdriving to get 10% off on your first report. So that's a pretty cool site. Definitely make sure to check it out. We're going to start with the exterior of the car, where we can definitely see the facelifted version. For instance, we do have the new logo in here, which is with the new Dacia logo. I really like that logo, looks very cool. And we also have some LED lights in here, which also, I like the front, and it definitely doesn't look like a cheap car, for instance. We also have some big intake right down here, kind of makes, well, it lifts the car up a little bit. And for me, it just looks like a car that would swim on the water, you know, because with that big gap, looks like a boat from the front, in my opinion, a little bit. We also have some skirts on the front for some mud gaps or mud caps in there as well. When we move over to the side, first thing you notice is that we do have some 17-inch wheels in here, which are fairly big for the car. But you can definitely see the car is risen up quite a lot. So it is fairly high. And there you go. We also have keyless go, as you might have been able to see now. So the mirrors move out as well. And then once we move away a little bit, actually, let me show you. It does that little boop, boop, which is a pretty cool feature, but you can definitely turn that off because after a time it's just going to be very annoying. In the front we do have normal brakes or disc brakes, which are good, but in the back we actually have drum brakes, so might not be the best ones after a time. One thing we also have up here is you can see we have like this fake, or the fake kind of plastic side skirt, which does look pretty cool, but it doesn't have any aerodynamic features to it. But I do like the black, and we also have the safari green gray color, which is a pretty cool color. We also have the roof rail up here, where you can obviously put that camping tent up there from Duster or from Dacia, which does look pretty cool and just makes the car like a really off-roady thing. Obviously, if you do want to get an off-road version of this, definitely get the 4x4. This one only has front wheel drive, but the 4x4 obviously is a little bit nicer. We also have a fuel tank of 50 liters. 5.4 liters is the usual consumption that Dacia says. We've been able to get around 6.9 to 7, but you're probably going to get it down to around 6.4. Let's move over onto the back, which in my opinion, I don't like it that much. Cameraman, how do you like it?
That's okay.
Well, great comment by my cameraman right there. You totally understood that, but I'm just personally not a big fan of the lights in the back. They don't look that nice. You also have a little small exhaust up there, but that's basically it for the back. Let's actually look at the trunk, which goes up pretty aggressively in my opinion. But in here you can definitely tell that the car is a fairly cheap car because, well, we just have this small little padding that goes, if I can pull it out, we just have the small little padding that covers basically the chassis of the car in here. But you do have quite a good amount of storage, which is 445 liters, and it goes up to 1,478 if I'm not totally mistaken. But let's actually flip them over so you can see. You can obviously take this out up on the top as well. But let's flip them over just so you can get an understanding to how much space you can put in there. Okay, give me a second here. There, you can flip that over. You can definitely again see it doesn't fold over all the way, which is unfortunate. And you do also have this, well, the kind of like fabric that goes on the bottom. It kind of hinders you with the back, and it doesn't look that great because it's not connected to the back seat, so it's not that great. It's a pretty decent size. I can actually fit in here pretty well if you look at it, so it does work pretty nicely. You can actually sleep in here. You could probably put, also if you take out the top, you could put like a nice mattress in here. You could sleep in there, or you can just put the tent up on the top. So what do you expect from a car that costs 16,900 euros? You expect something that is practical and gets you from A to B. That's basically it. You're not expecting something that goes sporty, something that goes fast. Talking about fast, top speed of 174. We've been able to actually reach 187, but I wouldn't suggest actually going that fast because that's not what the car is designed for. The car is more designed for just driving in the city from A to B and just getting you to places and being practical. That's really what it's all about. When driving that fast, the aerodynamics is just not great because the car's also a little bit higher, so there's more wind resistance that it picks up. And also if you're going above that speed, around 140, 150, the exterior sounds really do get, like the wind noise get really big because there's not really much any insulation in here. I mean, even right now you can hear a little bit of wind noise. I don't know if you can, but we can hear it, and we're only going 70. When we were driving from Cologne back to Kassel, we had a consumption of 6.9 at 258 kilometers, something about that. Yep. So it's fairly decent. We've been able to now get, if we look up in the front, 7 liters, but we've been driving a little bit more, well, not that eco-friendly. That's usually what I drive. But obviously you could possibly get down to around 6.4. That's usually where you're going to be trying to get to. Also, if you're trying to lower that consumption, you can also go into the eco mode, which is the only mode you actually have in the car. So you can lower your consumption by, it's not going to have that much power when you accelerate and just be a little more eco-friendly. Driving in town, one thing you definitely notice is the lightness on the steering wheel. Like if you're going a little bit slower, nobody's behind me, so I can drive a little bit slower, but I can legit turn this with one finger fairly easily, and it doesn't feel that great. When going slow, driving to park, you just you can basically spin the wheel around, and that's basically what it does. It's a very light steering wheel when you're driving slow, but as soon as you go faster, it stiffens up. While we're driving on a little bit of a faster road, the suspension just isn't great in the car. That is definitely one thing that you also don't expect from the car, but maybe a little bit softer. It's just very stiff. If you're trying to take this thing off-road, it's just gonna bump you around. You probably don't even need a gym subscription because your glutes are just gonna be you're just gonna have to work them out each and every single time you drive this car. And obviously handling-wise, I mean, what do you expect? It's nothing great, nothing sporty. It doesn't drive around corners that well. But this car is not meant to go faster. It's meant to just be a city car that has a good amount of range, good practicality, and that's basically the gist of the car. And while we're on the topic of range, we would be able to get around 700 to 750 kilometers on this thing. You can get a pretty far amount with that 50-liter tank in the back and the pretty low consumption. If you go lower, you can even drive it pretty far. We've been driving it for, 420 kilometers now? And we've gotten half empty tank. So maybe even 800 kilometers is in this car. That's how much you can actually get from it. So it's a cheap to run car. Its warranty is pretty decent with the 3-year warranty, 100,000 kilometers. And other than that, I don't think much can break in this car because it doesn't have much to it. Maybe the heated seat can break at some point, maybe your infotainment display or the climate control, but that's basically it. I don't think that engine, because it's such a small engine, is gonna break fairly quick. 150 horsepower with a 2-liter 4-cylinder, actually a 1.3-liter 4-cylinder, sorry about that. That thing's not going to break fast. I think this is a fairly decent car that you can drive for a long time, just like a Volvo back in the days. And you can definitely hear like the suspension. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's also not great. So here are 3 cool and 3 not so cool things about the Dacia Duster. First of all, when you're trying to fold over the back seat, that is always going to come in the way. So you can see disappeared, magic. And now if you do this, but actually put it into the side, and now you flip it back, ooh, it's still there. Wow, that's some magic. The seats also have a quick release function, so you can just do this and go all the way down. So you can have a sleeping position right when you're driving, which is pretty cool. And you can bring it all the way back up. I like that. Not many cars have that actually. We also have 4 different cameras, one in the back, one in the front, one on the side, and another one on the side. 3 not so good things about the car is, for instance, the ceiling throughout the car. For instance, up here, look at this. You could just pull it right off. The front window goes down automatically if you press it once. The side windows or any other window, you have to hold it down, which is also not nice. Because if you're driving and if you hold down the button on the side, it's not the greatest thing. This storage space up here is also not the greatest, because if you put anything up there, it doesn't matter what, it's just gonna fall straight off when you drive. The front of the car, obviously, Dacia's gotta save somewhere. So the quality is obviously not the greatest. You have a lot of plastic. You do actually not have plastic on the side where you open the door, which is pretty cool. And you also have contrast stitching in here, which is insane. Look at that, contrast stitching on the side everywhere, also on the seats. That's great. One thing I'm not a big fan of is how far back the controls for your windows are. So you have to reach pretty far back. When you're driving, you can't just go, I want to flip them over, but you have to basically dislocate your shoulder, which is not that great. Steering wheel, pretty cool. We will talk about that a little bit more when we drive. Again, quality up here. That's pretty loud, there's like a bass in there. Seats are fairly nice, they are pretty comfortable actually, I like them. The only thing I'm not a big fan of is the headrest, which is basically like a wooden board. It's just very hard, but I personally don't use it anyways that much. We have the 6-speed gearbox, obviously an automatic. If you want to go all-wheel drive, you can get the or you can get a manual, which is pretty cool. Not a big fan of the small cup holders in here and also in the front. Down here we do have 2 USB ports. We don't have USB-C. Nowadays I would expect USB-C, at least 1 in each car. However, USB is also pretty fine, but some people might not even have them in the future. It was kind of hard for me to find one for my iPhone adapter, so that's another thing. We also have automatic climate control, which does come in the Journey edition. Very nice, I love the feature. Automatic. Well, it works very nice. You have a lot of buttons, which is pretty cool. Another thing that you get in the Journey Edition is the armrest, which is, well, you can obviously put it forward and put it backwards, exactly opposite to what I just said. And you can also flip it up and you have a storage in here for like the smallest drink that you can have or whatever you want to put in there. Roof also very, very cheap. Again, very hollow in there. You do also have blinders, obviously, but you don't have any light for your makeup, so you don't have a makeup light in there, but that's basically it for the front. Yeah, not much else I can say. Oh, actually, one thing I did forget is the heated seats. You do also have heated seats in here, which is an option extra that you can buy, so you have a button on the side. Quality in the back is basically just like in the front, apart from one thing that is different. Instead of having the side in like a different, like not a plastic, this one is in full plastic, so it's a little bit harder on your hands. So quality-wise, it's not the greatest, obviously, but they gotta save somewhere, and this is definitely a place to save in the interior. We do have a nice little storage space in the front. Seating positions also fairly good. We do have a decent amount of room, definitely up top. We have lots of room. Front, you don't have that much legroom, but it's fine for like longer-ish journeys. The gearbox, or not the gearbox, the exhaust tunnel is also fairly small, so you can actually put stuff in here. It's not as big as in some other cars. We do also have two USB ports in here, which is an extra price that you'd have to pay. The seats actually are fairly small if you sit in them. They're more likely made for like teenager and kids, but not for big people. They kind of squish together, in my opinion. You can definitely fit in here with 3 people, but over a long journey it might not be the most comfortable, because the seats are fairly comfortable and you can definitely sit in there, but they're a little bit squashed together. Like I said, you don't have a through passage, so you don't even have anything where you can put anything. The roof, just like in the front, you can definitely feel you can just listen to that. It's pretty hollow. You just have the roof above it. You can press it in fairly decent, so there's a big space in between it. But that's basically it. You also have a reading lamp in the back, which also is an extra that you have to pay for. But that's basically it for the back. You also have, obviously, your box. But if you just listen to it, it's fairly cheap, but what do you expect? Okay, so let's see what this front wheel beast with 150 horsepower can do. Dacia says 1.9 seconds. Oh, those brakes are amazing. So let's do it. Oh, come on, push, 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 push. Oh, that's looking good. That's looking spicy. 9.61, okay. Not bad, not great. But to be fair, Dacia claimed 9.7, not 1.9, so it's a pretty fair time. Even though the car is fairly cheap, it's the Journey Edition, so it's a little bit more expensive than the other versions, and we do have some extra features. There are quite a lot of assistance, which I am actually a big fan of, that some other cars in a way bigger price range don't have with standard in an edition. Which, for instance, is blind spot mirroring. Blind spot assistance. So if somebody's driving past you, you obviously have the blind spot. You can turn that on and off by that button, which is a pretty cool thing, which I love. We also have a speeding limiter, which is a pretty cool feature. If you press on it, it's basically going to limit you to what speed you want to go. So you can set a speed, and if you're going over the speed, it's going to decelerate you, which might be useful at some point. I don't know what it might be used for, so let me know if you have any useful idea for that. Well, obviously, if it's a speed limit of 50, it might be a little bit helpful because it's going to slow you down if you're going too fast, but I don't really see the point behind that. And then the other thing that I'm not a big fan at all is the quality of the of the infotainment system. The sound system is not great. For instance, if you're doing a call, you're gonna have a headache after like 3 minutes, because when people say something like she, the he or the she is just gonna explode your ears, because the sound is not great. We'll test it out in a second. The other thing is, obviously, if you're listening to music, we'll listen to that now. Put some on and we'll see how it is. Don't know how well you can pick it up, but we can increase the sound a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad, but it's also not great. I'll say that much. And the other thing is that for increasing the volume, something I would have liked if it was on here, but instead it's on this side. If you can see that, there's a plus, minus, and also a wheel on the back, which where you can change the next, where you can change it to the next sound or the next song. It's a little bit inconvenient, but after time you get used to it, but it just doesn't look great as well. The other thing is you can change it on the infotainment display. We're talking about the infotainment display, let's quickly go through it. There's really not much to it. You only have your car parameters, which are just a couple of settings, for instance, a welcoming sound, stuff like that, which you've already heard previously. What are these guys doing? Like, why are you just walking on the road? Navigation display, not the greatest. It's just bare minimums, basically, that's it. You can see right here, it works, but it's also... Okay, well, there you go. That's how you zoom out. I mean, you're basically playing Minecraft if you go out fast, but that's the gist of it. The final verdict on the Dacia Duster, well, it is pretty positive, because it's a pretty cheap car. If you really want to go bare bones, 16,900 euros, you can't beat that. With that amount of money, what car you're getting is very good. Obviously, I would definitely get a package, because you get a lot of extras. For instance, the climate control in the interior, which is pretty nice. You get some other extras, like the multi-view camera. It's pretty cool. Definitely get that. But the design in general, just for the price, you definitely can't go wrong. If you want to go more off-roady, definitely get the 4x4. If you enjoy the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.